Well, hello there. It's starting to look a lot like Christmas or the holiday season or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah, Bodhi Day, Yule, Dongzhi, Omisoka, Hogmanay, Festivus. I think we got everyone there. Anyway, November was a very eventful month in the world of Ottawa real estate. We saw continued strength in our market, and the Ottawa Real Estate Board got itself a new MLS system. Spoiler alert, it's a freaking mess. Oh, and November also saw our neighbors to the south get themselves a new supreme leader. Spoiler alert, same thing. All right, you know it's not a freaking mess though? A new initiative by the province of British Columbia that aims to make housing more affordable for the middle class by having the government cover a huge portion of your purchase price. So we're gonna cover that and all the things and then some in your December 2024 Ottawa real estate market update. Grab yourself a beverage, put on your favorite helmet. That didn't make any sense. And let's have some fun, shall we? All right, now, before we get into the sales stats and my mini rant on our new and impaired MLS system, let's talk about some recent big picture stuff and how it might impact the real estate market, shall we? All right. So first and foremost, as you are no doubt aware, Donald Trump was elected President of the United States of America in November. And now you may be asking, what in the orange heck does that have to do with Canadian real estate? Well, let me explain. And I promise I'm not about to just repeat the same tired trope that prices here are gonna go up because a bunch of fed up Americans are gonna flee to Canada, all right? I don't think that'll actually happen, and even if it did, most of those fleeing Americans would not be able to buy homes here anyway because we have a foreign buyer ban in Canada, and Americans, as much as they don't like to hear it, are foreigners here, all right? So having said that, Trump's election may have a real impact nonetheless on our real estate market as it pertains to fixed mortgage rates, okay? So those are your 5-year fixed, your 3-year fixed, your 2-year fixed mortgages, etc. Okay? Allow me to explain. Fixed mortgage rates are tied to the bond market, okay? And a lot of measures that the Donald has said he would take once in power, like the imposition of tariffs, for example, are inflationary measures in their nature. And so anytime we are hit with high inflation or even just the threat of high inflation, bond yields start to rise. And when bond yields rise, so do fixed interest rates. I'm doing this a lot, okay? So when bond yields go up, fixed interest rates go up right alongside them. Another important note here, because I know some of you watching this are thinking it, yes, Canada does have its very own bond market, and it's not technically tied to the US bond market, but it is very closely correlated to it, okay? In other words, when they move, we move, just like that. Andrew, did you get that reference?
No.
It's ludicrous, come on. God damn. So where were we? Yeah, so hey, just to be fair, because we can't always blame all our problems on our neighbors to the south, we've also seen our fair share of inflationary policy right here in Canada recently. The upcoming tax holiday bill is just the latest example of that. So we're doing it to ourselves as well. And in recent weeks, we have begun to see the impact of this on our fixed mortgage rates, right? So fixed rates had been coming down, and for a while there, you could get a 5-year fixed mortgage in the very low 4s. For a minute, we even saw some places offering 3.99% on a 5-year fixed mortgage. Today, however, unfortunately for most, the best fixed rates are generally back in the mid to high 4s, right? So on a 5-year fixed now, you're likely looking at 4.49 to 4.79%. And of course, things can always change, but for now at least, it looks like we may have seen the bottom come and go on fixed rates. Variable mortgage rates, on the other hand, are not tied to the bond market, and those rates are expected to continue trending down in the months to come. We're seeing a lot more buyers opt for variable over fixed as of late, and those same buyers are sure to be paying very close attention to the Bank of Canada's final rate announcement of 2024, which is set to take place on December 11th. Okay? Now, what's interesting here is that we typically have a pretty good idea of what the Bank of Canada is planning well ahead of each rate announcement. They kind of telegraph what they're going to do. However, things are not quite so clear this time around. Historically speaking, the Bank of Canada does like to hold the line on interest rates in December. However, a lot of people who are smarter than me seem to think that we may get a Christmas cut this year, or a Kwanzaa cut, or a Hanukkah cut. right? Could be a quarter point. Some are even thinking it might be as much as a half point cut. So no one seems to know for sure, and I'm all out of puns. So let's move on and let's dive right into the Ottawa real estate market stats for the month of November, shall we? All right, let's get those Freehold stats up on the screen for you in 1, 2, 3, fa la 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 la. All right, so before we dive in here, anyone who pays attention to these updates has probably noticed that the numbers look a little out of whack this month, right? And the reason for that is because, as I mentioned at the top, the Ottawa Real Estate Board, in its infinite wisdom, adopted a new MLS system just a few days ago. And to say that the transition has been a mess would be like saying that the people on the Titanic just got a little bit wet, right? For my Ottawa people, this has made the Phoenix Pay system rollout look like a freaking iPhone launch by comparison, all right? So yeah, there are still a lot of kinks to work out, but rest assured, we will adapt and we will keep bringing you quality updates every single month. We will roll with the punches here, all right? And most importantly, we're gonna keep having fun doing it. And whenever we have to, we're gonna keep finding ways to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's finally talk about those stats, shall we? One of the biggest differences between the old and new system, and this is actually a positive change in my opinion, one of the only ones, is that we've redefined the territory for Ottawa real estate, right? In the old system, and that was the one that all the previous updates were based off of, or that the stats from the previous updates were based off of. In that system, Ottawa also included places like Brockville, Renfrew, Hawkesbury, Lanark, etc. Basically, like anything within an hour and a half of the city was included in the stats. In the new system, Ottawa's really just Ottawa, right? And then there are some areas just outside of city limits that are included, like, you know, your Rockland, Manotick, Carp, you get the picture, all right? So all that to say that when I told you last month that we sold 1,070 freehold homes here in October, and now I'm telling you this month that in November we sold 622 homes, it's not that the market had a 40% drop, right? It's because we're now defining Ottawa as a much smaller geographic area than we were in the past. Cool? Cool. So, if we stick with this new definition of Ottawa, our November sales total of 622 was actually higher by 2 full sales than October's sales total of 620. Now, it's not unheard of for our November sales to keep pace with October, but it is fairly uncommon. The start of November marks the transition from the fall market to the winter market here, and in most years, that's accompanied by a real slowdown in sales activity. Okay. Also, 622 sales is well above the 455 we saw this time last year. And historically speaking, 622 is also a really healthy November total. Now, the average sale price for a freehold home in November was about $758K. That was pretty much in line with October's average of $768K, so no real shift there. And in case you're wondering, this month's average sale price was the second highest November average we've ever seen, the highest coming in 2021. Now, if you recall, Ottawa's real estate market hit its all-time peak. We hit our all-time craziness in the early part of 2022. And we definitely started seeing signs that things were headed in that direction in the fourth quarter of 2021, the year that comes before 2022, right? So it will be very interesting to me to see if history is repeating here, and if we'll end up looking back on our strong fourth quarter this year, 2024, as an indication that the market was about to take off again in 2025. As always, keep it locked to this channel and we will keep you posted if our system still allows us to give you stats. Finally, by my calculation, because our system won't do it for me anymore, we're sitting on about 2.4 months of inventory right now in Ottawa. Usual reminder here, inventory is a measure of both supply and demand, all in one. 2.4 months is a pretty low total. It's considered to be an indicator of a seller's market. Our sales to new listings ratio also shot up to 81.4% in November. So that's another key stat that's firmly in seller's market territory. Now, we are dealing with a data set this month that, let's face it, may require a big old asterisk. And that being said, it's also important to keep in mind that November is a time of year where a huge number of unsold listings get canceled and just taken off the market, right? So, this is also a time of year where just about anybody who's thinking of selling their home right now is holding off until next year if their situation allows it. So this is a period, in other words, where it's not unusual to see our listing supply drop and then stay low for a few months before finally getting replenished as we start moving into the new year. I think it is safe to say that those factors are all playing at least some role in the inventory and sales to new listing ratios this month. Okay. On the whole, I qualify the freehold market in Ottawa as it's kind of like a weak seller's market right now, right? So that being said, in spite of it being a weak seller's market, keep in mind that anyone who has their house up for sale right now is likely to be highly motivated, especially with the first snow falling today, right? No one wants to be on the market when the weather is like this. And so this can still be a great time of year to go looking for deals. Just understand that it's a little bit like shopping at like some end of season sale at your favorite clothing store, right? The deals are there, but you might not find anything you like. That'll do it for freehold. Let's move on to condo. But before we get all up into the condo stats, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this month's market update. So if you remember last month, our sponsor was Canada Post. And then our update came out and they immediately went on strike. I'm not saying that our market update had anything to do with the strike, just to be clear, but just in case, this month's market update is brought to you by every other realtor in Ottawa. Every other realtor in Ottawa. Find yours on a picket line near you, or just call the Papineau Group. We're always working hard for you. All right, enough mucking about. Let's drum up those condo stats for you, my babies. 1, 2, 3. Power up, pum, pum. All right, so I don't know why I find that so funny. All right, so as in past months, we are seeing a lot of the same general trends with condos as we are with freehold. Only the condo market remains the softer of the two. Another quick note here, because condos are largely concentrated in urban areas, the change to our MLS system and then the redefining of what we consider to be Ottawa has had much less impact on the condo stats than it did on the freehold stats, all right? And so in November, we sold 223 condos in Ottawa. That's slightly more than the 221 we sold in October. And again, most years we'd expect to see volume drop when going from October to November. This year's November total is also much better than the last two Novembers, 23 and 22, where we sold 181 and 176 condos here respectively. That being said, 223 sales is still a little on the low side historically. Pre-COVID, our November sales totals were typically in the high 200s to low 300s for condos. So again, the condo market hasn't quite roared all the way back to life in the same way that the freehold market has in recent months. Now, the average selling price of a condo in November was a little over $430K. And I will remind you as always that the average selling price for condos does tend to bounce around between the low and mid 400s from month to month. We really haven't broken out of that range up or down in any kind of sustained way for about 2.5 years now. But hey, maybe 2025 will be the year. Finally, we have about 3.5 months of condo inventory right now, and our sales to new listings ratio in November was just below 60%, and the average time to sell was 35 days. Now, most of those stats are right on the line between what we would consider to be balanced market indicators and sellers market indicators. I would personally qualify our condo market as balanced right now on the whole. So we made it through the stats. Ladies and gentlemen, here's hoping things get a little smoother in the months to come. And that takes us to our final segment this month. And hey, we're gonna end the year on a positive note, a refreshing change of pace, I know. All right, so I wanted to tell you all about a pretty radical new initiative that is being rolled out in British Columbia. Its official name is the BC Shared Equity Housing Plan, okay? And just before I tell you all about how it works, allow me to set the stage for you, okay? So first off, the BC Shared Equity Housing Plan is being run as a kind of a pilot project, and it's all centered around one large upcoming development in West Vancouver. The name of the development is the Heatherlands development, and the developer in charge is a very well-established Indigenous-led firm known as MST Development Corp. All right, so the Heatherlands development is going to be this entire new community. It's going to include a mix of 2,600 new residential condos, bachelors, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom units. And it's also going to have shops, parks, hiking trails, a cultural center, daycares, and a whole lot more. And the location of this new community is prime, all right? It is prime real estate. And so we're going to be building a product here that would typically be way out of reach financially for first-time buyers or even for dual income middle-class families. Just to give you an idea, a new 2-bedroom condo in this area would be expected to sell for about $1.3 million on the open market, right? So like some serious coin. That's the overview of the upcoming Heatherlands development in West Vancouver. Now that we've painted that pretty picture, you're probably asking, okay, but how are they going to make these $1 million condos affordable? Good question, here's the answer. Anyone who buys into this development is going to have 40% of their purchase price covered by none other than the government of British Columbia. That's right. If you buy into this development, the government of BC is basically going to hand you a 40% down payment. So as a buyer, you're only going to have to come up with 60% of your purchase price. And you would just do that through traditional financing, right? So you basically go to your bank or your mortgage broker, you tell them you just bought a $1.3 million condo and that you have a $520,000 down payment courtesy of the provincial government. And so now you just need a mortgage for the remaining $780K. That's the math. I wouldn't call $780K a small mortgage by any means, but to a middle-class couple who maybe have a little bit of money put away, it's attainable, right? Unlike 1.3 million, which is just way out of reach, right? And that's truly what sets the BC Shared Equity Housing Plan apart from most other government-led housing initiatives. Most housing initiatives are focused on producing what's traditionally known as affordable housing, which typically caters to people who, for various reasons, struggle to earn a living wage, right? And I want to be very clear, I'm not knocking those initiatives. I think they certainly have their place. It's just that this is something very different, right? This is a reputable, socially conscious developer and the province of BC working together to provide a chance for some of Vancouver's middle class to get into the type of neighborhood and the type of product that would typically be exclusive to the millionaire class, all right? So, chef's kiss to you, BC, and chef's kiss to you, MST Development Corp. And so the question I'm sure everyone is asking by now is whether or not these 40% government-funded down payments have to be repaid at some point. And the answer to that question is yes. They are not gifts, they are a form of loan, but they are loans that come with some pretty friendly terms. Okay? The buyers who get one of these 40% loans won't have to pay a single penny back until the day they sell their unit or after 25 years have passed, whichever comes first. Okay? And the way repayment works when you sell your unit is that the BC government is owed either 40% of your sale price or the full original loan amount, whichever of those two is the largest. Finally, if you haven't sold your unit after 25 years, then you'd have to pay back the original loan amount plus 1.5% annual compounding interest. So just to give you an idea, after 25 years, a person who received 500K would have to pay back about 725K. That's super reasonable for a 25-year loan. If we assume that the real estate market in Vancouver will continue to rise over time, probably a safe bet, then the BC government actually stands to turn a profit from this program, right? So like we're truly benefiting all sides here. Now, having said that, before you pack your bags and book a flight to Vancouver, it's important to note that there are some key restrictions with this program. There's always a catch, right? First, in order to qualify, your annual household income has to be less than about 192K, and the value of your household's net assets has to be less than 250K. So no rich people allowed, right? Second, you have to provide at minimum a 5% down payment for the portion of the purchase that you are responsible for financing, okay? Next, and this is where I burst your bubble, Ontario friends. Sorry, Andrew. The program is only open to individuals who've been living in BC for at least the last 2 full years, okay? And finally, the program is also going to prioritize first-time buyers, followed by people who've owned a home in the past but do not own at the moment, okay? And if there are any units left after that, the program would open up to anybody who would be selling their existing home in order to move into this development. I would not hold my breath on that one. All right, one other thing that I genuinely appreciate about this program is that the people running it have put in safeguards to weed out investors and speculators, right? They really want these units to go to end users, people who are gonna live in them. It really feels like the organizers here have thoroughly thought this through, and I actually think it might be helpful if some other governments and public organizations, like the CMHC, for example, took notes. Anyway, so what they've done in BC is that they've set these additional rules that say that if you buy one of these homes and then you turn around and sell it during your first year of occupancy, you are not entitled to a single penny of profit, right? Any sale proceeds that are left over after you've repaid all of your loans, covered your selling costs, those profits go directly to the provincial government, all right? And then if you sell during your second year of occupancy, you'd only be entitled to 20% of any profits generated. And in the third year, it's 40%, all right? So it's not until you've lived there for 3 full years plus a day that you become entitled to your full 60% stake in the home's equity. Also, if they find out you're using the property as a rental, the full 40% loan plus interest becomes due right away. All right, so they're not messing around with this. So that's the program. Now, what do we think? I have to say that personally, and as someone who's generally been, let's face it, pretty critical of the housing policy in this country in recent years, I fucking love this. And I know YouTube's gonna be real upset with me for using that word, but I've just gotta keep it real, all right? A policy like this thinks long-term. It encourages new development of quality housing, and maybe most importantly to me anyways, this looks to help a middle class, which includes a ton of people whose contributions to their communities often far outweigh their salaries, right? Like we're talking teachers, we're talking nurses, social workers, first responders, realtors, just kidding. But yeah, so we're creating opportunities for these people to have access to a level of neighborhood and housing and lifestyle and convenience that they otherwise might not, even though they definitely deserve it. All right. So needless to say, I'm going to be paying very close attention to this project, and I will be very curious to see if more initiatives like this one start popping up in other places. I really hope it's a success because I think it's a great thing. And you know what else I think is great while we're at it? You. And I like helping great people make great real estate moves. And so if ever you have questions, for real, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can contact me here. I'm always happy to chat, okay? And with that, we are going to wrap it up for 2024. As always, thank you for watching. Wishing you a safe and happy holiday season, and we'll see you in 2025.